and interior coordination. The persons who've been placed in this position to lead that docket don't have the required security experience. That always takes us back. And when it comes to choices, we have so many Kenyans, very highly and heavily qualified, hold these positions. And they can lead the country very well.
Yeah.
Assume, for example, you bring in somebody who has no security background. He does not know how police work, he does not know how APs work, he does not know how the army works. When he faces a crisis, he does too many consultations. When he comes out to the press, the kind of statement he makes when people like ourselves sit back and listen to all these guys saying, we are telling ourselves, brother, you are wrong. Whatever you're saying does not go with exactly what we require. All right? And where does this come from? It is very difficult to delink politics and security. But when you come to the crux or the core of security persons are not supposed to be involved in any political arena. Now, we need to really interpret the constitution aspect of our security organs being under civilian leadership. Where do they delink? When it comes to policy, civilians will take charge of that. But when it comes to operations, the security persons in this country are supposed to take care of that. But when it comes to actual operation, you'll find that totally different. They tell us what we are supposed to do. But because security is about a chain of command and chain of structure, you end up saying yes. Some of us don't have the guts enough to say, no, this cannot be done. Go to a country like Israel or the US. This position, you cannot hold them without the preferred or solid background in that kind of an arena. They perform very well, those countries. In terms of security, they do very well. Of course, they have their own challenges, but they do very well.
Okay.
That's something we need to adopt.
Kennedy, I don't know what you make of this conversation about technocrats and politicians. And for a long time, we have had that drive where we say it is necessary to have, say, cabinet secretaries who are technocrats. But we have also seen occurrences where technocrats have literally failed certain dockets that have been accorded to them. Just how critical is the security docket that we would say the best we can do is to have a leadership that is security savvy, for instance, so that then we get it right? And what are the guarantees that we would do that if we do not have structures and systems that would help what it is that they bring on board then be implemented, even in times when they are not there?
Okay. At a fundamental level, in a system of democracy like we have, it's called a tricameral system, where you have the executive on one side, you have the judiciary on the other side, and you have a legislature on the other side, and there's a balance of power between those three different arms of leadership. It is common, even amongst those top democracies, that security dockets will usually be under civilian leadership at a cabinet secretary level or at a ministerial level. Okay. What is more important is that below that level, you need to have now the technocrats, people who have the security background, the people who have the capability to assess situations in a manner that is informed by security skills, security backgrounds, security experience. Now, but stepping back a little, we were having a discussion about policy. When you're formulating policy, Kenya, sometimes we do things half-baked. We talked of Nyumba Kumi, for example. Nyumba Kumi really should have fallen under a wider context of what is called community policing. Community policing should not be necessarily a one-way street, and it shouldn't be something shallow. It should be a long-term investment in a two-way bilateral relationship between the community and the security agencies in that community, which means at a fundamental level, you need to have trust between the citizens of the country and the security agencies that are mandated to protect them. Number two, Kenya has certain, we talked about strengths before, now let's talk about weaknesses. We have several weaknesses, some of my brothers mentioned that. One, we have an issue of corruption, which means that at a fundamental level, it is easy for people to buy their way through certain things. Somebody's crossing the border, there are certain checks and balances that should happen. Somebody comes and they're loaded with money, they buy their way through that. That is a fundamental weakness. Corruption goes in many facets. It makes people who are professional compromise their judgment because in one way or the other, their palms have been greased. So back to Nyumba Kumi, that aspect of community policing in Kenya, because of the long-standing relationship between the citizens and the security agencies, because of lack of those fundamental issues, and just because we don't do it at a comprehensive enough level to make sure that we see it through to where it works. Now, the other flip side, which is where you started your question, is politics. Yeah, Kenyan politics is, you know, a factor in these discussions, because what will usually typically happen is a leader at top national level will say, hey, let me give the docket to people I trust. Now, people you trust will usually be cronies or buddies or somebody you feel this one has my back and will not betray. Do they have demonstrated capability to, even if they don't have necessarily a background in security? There have been leaders who have been successful, as was noted, in those dockets who did not necessarily have that experience, but they were good in making decisions. They have leadership capabilities. They have the ability to, from a management point of view, from a leadership point of view, from a visionary point of view, from a strategic point of view, to make decisions and hire the right people to do the right things. So when you get a lot of political cronism, when consideration is simply based on who is closest to the person that's making these decisions, then this further weakens our ability to be able to confront these threats. At the end of the day, there are also economic and social issues, social-economic issues that drive this. When we're talking about terrorism, we're talking about radicalization, how it happens. Sometimes somebody looks, I mean, even for the Dusit attack, you had people who were not necessarily the typical profile of somebody you would expect. Somebody's father, or somebody's, you know, somebody was brought up in a proper manner, or was the son of somebody who was in the security sector or something. But something happens in their life. Something happens. We've seen cases where somebody feels they are disenfranchised. You've seen cases where somebody's relative gets killed and they get radicalized and all that. So those social economic issues, when you're creating a comprehensive security policy, they have to be considered. You see, you know, crime is usually concentrated around certain areas that have some certain aspect of marginalization, whether it's economic marginalization or other marginalization, and these people feel disenfranchised, and they're easy now targets for both that radicalization that happens, but also they are not necessarily as cooperative when it comes to dealing with this threat. So if we are to be serious about addressing these issues, then we have to tackle all these things, and it has to be not on a political cycle. It has to be not on the way we do things. People have to take it seriously and understand that for you to protect yourself, you need to make an investment in the right,